Hello, BookTube. I have a tag for you today. It was created yesterday by Dalton at Strip Cover Lit as part of their channel's plan to do great tags every Tuesday from now until the end of time. They haven't had a miss yet, and this is another great one. And it's seasonal. It's the Springtime for Dalton tag. Springtime for Dalton and Germany. Winter for Poland and France. Bombs falling from the skies again. Deutschland is on the rise again. It's all about spring, which is a little heartbreaking for me since it's freezing cold here in Boston, but one can always hope. And the first question is, spring is a time of rebirth. What's one new author you've read this year? I've read a lot. I read every new book that I can get my hands on. I'm assuming that the question, of course, refers to fiction, but it might not. The guys at Strip Cover Lit are fairly adventurous readers. But in any case, the first name that came to mind was a debut novelist. It was Snowden Wright, who wrote a big, ambitious, generational historical novel called American Pop that I really liked. I really enjoyed it. In fact, the more I thought about it, the more I like a lot of the decisions the author made that weren't immediately obvious to me when I wrote my review. For instance, it's been percolating in my mind. So I don't know if he's the drop-down #1 against all contenders favorite new writer of that I've encountered so far this year, but he's certainly up there. Then number 2 is, what is the best new book you've read this year? And for me, that would be a book that I've mentioned on this channel already. It's Tim McIntosh Smith's book, Arabs. Great big 700-page book about 3,000 years of Arab history that I thought, when I first heard about it, I thought perhaps it would be a little on the dry side or overstretched. Because how do you do that? How do you write 3,000 years of Arab history? It seems almost impossible to do, even in a big book. But this thing was not only sweeping and authoritative from beginning to end, but also beautifully written, which is, I certainly wasn't expecting that. So it gets the nod right now, at least. In, where are we? It's hard to know. It feels like, when I want to say what part of the year we're in, it feels like I want to say late November. Just because it's freezing cold. It's freezing cold outside, but I guess we're in mid-April. But anyway, so far, that takes the prize for me. Then question number 3 is, what is your go-to book to return to? And Dalton put a smile on my face by saying that his own go-to book is The Lord of the Rings. That is definitely one of mine. I have many, but that's definitely one of mine that I go back to over and over and over again. He likened it to an autumn book, which I'm taking as sort of Kremlin watching code speak for the fact that he and Adrian and maybe a whole bunch of the rest of you might be up for a Lord of the Rings read in the autumn. But even if I'm misinterpreting that, The Lord of the Rings is definitely one for me. Another one for me is Frank Herbert, but it's not Dune. I love Dune, and I love Children of Dune. But my favorite of the Dune books is God, Emperor of Dune, the 4th book by Frank Herbert. And it's that book and the 2 that follow it, Heretics of Dune and Chapter House Dune. It's those 3 Dune books. They often are go-to books for me to go back to. I don't really know why. I actually am in the extreme minority when it comes to Frank Herbert's prose. I think his science fiction, his Dune books, get better as they go along, except for the weird, I won't even call it a misstep, because rereads have put it higher in my estimation, but the weird sidestep of Dune Messiah, which I don't think was ever intended to be a novel, and I don't think it was ever reworked to be a novel. But Dune and Children of Dune, God, Emperor of Dune, Heretics, and Chapter House Dune, I think those books in some ways get better as they go along. They certainly get more completely controlled. The things that are done in one small paragraph in Chapter House Dune would have taken pages to do in Dune, and less effectively. So those, I could list go-to books all day long. I have a wide array of them, from the Jungle Books to Sherlock Holmes to the novels of Robert Harris. I could go on that list all day long, but for the one that came to mind was the later Dune novels of Frank Herbert. Then let's see here. Number 4 is, what are your reading goals for the season of spring? And that's easy for me, 150 books. Then question number 5 is, what are your writing goals for the season of spring? And one of them, I've been a little dilatory, is my ongoing serial in Weird Mask, that's published by Matt at Paperback Junkie. He has an old style pulp magazine called Weird Mask, which is a fantasy anthology series that comes out whenever he puts it out. And I'm doing a serial for that called The Red Bishop. And I fell behind a little. I got massive deadline work, but now I'm sort of back in the saddle. So my goal for the spring is to bring The Red Bishop to its incredible climax and then finish it, so that with Matt's permission, I can start another serial in Weird Mask. I already know what I want the next one to be. But in terms of other things, professionally, I would like to do at least 30 reviews for the springtime. If lucky, I can do more than that, but at least 30. And I'd like, well, it's kind of a blurry line between, what's published and what's not. But I'd like at least half of those to be in venues that aren't mine. But Open Letters Review is my own venue. The reason why I say there's a blurry line is because the publishing industry, the reading world, doesn't know any difference between it. At Open Letters Review, we punch above our weight, just like Open Letters Monthly did. So you can find Open Letters Review blurbs on many, many paperbacks. Far more Open Letters Review blurbs on such books, which puts your name in print and spreads your name forever. That's not going to be, you can't remove it from that book. So copies of that are going to be in a library, and they're going to be in used bookstores forever. And we get far more of those at Open Letters Review than, for instance, actual newspapers who have a much greater circulation reach than we do. So I'm not at all poo-pooing. I would love to do all 30. I'll do all 30 of those in Open Letters Review if it comes to that. But I like the adventure, and I like reaching different audiences. So doing at least half of those 30 elsewhere for pay would be nice. And then the last of the writing goals is I'm currently involved in the generation and the working together and the cheerleading and the blocking out and the outlining and sometimes writing the first drafts of 2 different books. And I'm hoping that in the course of the spring, those projects will move forward considerably. That would be great. So those are my writing goals. Quite a few, but I do very little other than write and read. So writing is a huge part of my life. You'd think I'd make more AuthorTube videos. I really ought to do that. But anyway, then question number 6 is, what's one novel that gets you excited about the outdoors? And since Dalton mysteriously answered this question with a book that is not a novel, Bill Bryson's book about the Appalachian Trail, then I thought I would do the same with Barry Lopez's new book, Horizon. Big, fat book by the great nature writer Barry Lopez about the world, about travels that he has done over the course of many years in many, many places. And that amazing observer's eye of his. Reading Horizon, I read it in the advanced copy, and then I read it in the finished copy, and reading it very nearly rekindled my own wanderlust, which has been dormant for a long time. I don't plan on it ever reviving. I don't. How would I do that now? It's a totally different world. There are quarantines everywhere. There are little tin-plated dictators at every single train stop. Everyone is so much more worried, and I'm not saying that they don't have reason to be. The kind of traveling that I did once upon a time, a long, long time ago, was in a looser and more casual world, when you could bring your dogs with you, or when you could travel without ever expecting to be hauled into a windowless room and asked a bunch of questions on legal grounds, just because, I don't know, you don't have any luggage. I don't know, one way or another. I'm confident that my wanderlust is sleeping forever. I'm confident of that because I have to be. I am my answer to a security guard or a customs official or anybody in the world who tells me, all right, take off your shoes and now take out your water bottle and drink a swig of it in front of all these people and in front of me just because I tell you so. My answer to such people is, to go climb a tree, to put it in euphemistic terms, and you can't travel if that's your answer. Unless you're wealthy enough to do it privately, you can't travel that way. So it's a different world, but I was close. I felt close to that reviving when I read Horizon. I can't recommend it strongly enough. I can't recommend Barry Lopez strongly enough if you haven't read him. But Dalton's choice as well, the Bill Bryson book on the Appalachian Trail, also made me think about traveling days. I am fairly certain that I doubt that I'm the only booktuber who has ever traveled the whole of the Appalachian Trail. I think probably a few of you have done that, but I'd be willing to bet I'm the only booktuber who has traveled from one end of the Appalachian Trail all the way to the other with no provender, where the Appalachian Trail kept me alive. I'd be willing to bet that's true. It was no easy feat, but I had lots of help. I don't know novels actually came to mind, so I'm kind of glad that I got to use a nonfiction word. And then question number 7 was an interesting one. Dalton said, this is all about your reading spot. Everybody has a reading spot. I ought to do a tag just on that. Everybody does have a reading spot, and I am endlessly nosy about such things, about where you actually do your reading and what makes that spot your spot as opposed to any place else. I have a few of them. But the question that he raised was, do you ever read outside? Since this is a spring tag. And at first, that question made me very bitter. Because it's freezing cold outside. So there's no chance whatsoever here in the middle of April that I could read outside. God knows if that will happen, but if those temperatures will ever get here. But I don't think it would make a difference anyway. In Dalton's answer, he said that he couldn't read outside because he would get distracted. Because when you're outside, he would be stimulated to do whatever, but it wouldn't be reading. And I'm not exactly the same, but the thing is, I am a package deal. If I'm going to be reading outside, then I want my dogs to be with me. At the moment, I have one dog, and she is extremely energetic. And extremely attuned to anything moving around her, especially anything that might stop and pat her. So if I were, for instance, to take Frida to an upper meadow in the Arboretum, find a nice spot by a pool or by a rock or under a tree to read, it would be at her expense. She would be miserable just sitting there. She would want to be moving. She would want to be exploring things. So I couldn't do it. And by the same token, I obviously can't go and do it without her, because then she's here and I'm there, and why would I be enjoying that? No, the times when it's happened with me, reading outside comfortably for long stretches of time, have always been a little melancholy, because there is a way to do it with dogs, but it's when they're older. When Frida, for instance, is 10 years old, then she'll be perfectly happy to just stretch out on the grass and lay there and look at things while I read. She'll be perfectly happy to do that. The manic bouncing off the walls energy that she has now will be gone then. And those are the times when I have read outside, is when my dogs have been like that. When my beagles, my boys, suddenly started to have gray in their faces and were okay with just laying on cool grass while I read. And that's a lot of fun. But I wouldn't do it otherwise. I wouldn't just say to Frida, well, you're not free to leave. Hang out here, penned up in this place, while I go and enjoy myself elsewhere. No, I wouldn't do that. So I do have reading spots, but they are here. The outside is going to have to wait on Frida. And that's it. That is the springtime for Dalton book tag. And also for me to do is tag people. I have some people that I want to tag. I want to tag Mark at Richardson Reads. I'd be amazed if his a million responsibilities ever gave him the opportunity to read outside. I'd be amazed if that was true, and I want to know. Let's see here. David Murphy, of course. It maybe is warming up. He lives in Manitoba or something, one of those snowbound provinces with bears roaming the streets, so it might never be warm enough for him to read outside. And Sarah at Steeped in Books, who will soon be here. Are you ready, BookTube? Can you possibly be ready soon? My sister from another mister, Sarah at Steeped in Books, will be here in Boston, and we will make videos together, and you will have to find a way to endure them. Then Nathan Knapp. He's a talented author who also has a BookTube channel, and apparently he's Canadian, so he's been too nice to mention that I have been rudely ignoring him in tags. He did a tag the other day, I think it was yesterday. It just had this. I mean, it was a great tag. He has a fantastic channel, and also you might want to check out his novel. It's entertaining reading, but. He did a tag, I think it was yesterday, and he went on this hilarious aria of not knowing what's going on. What are tags? What are they? Am I supposed to know how to do this? It's kind of funny. And in case you're wondering, I believe he does pronounce it Canap. Okay. All right. And then let's see here. Oh, Sue at Sue's Book Nook, and I would really like it if little Skippy was in the video. He's been appearing in some of her videos, and it's been very nice. She has a very cute old dog. Oh, and of course Britta. None of us can make a tag without tagging Britta, because she's all caught up on her tags, and she needs more constantly. That's it. That was another Tuesday tag from the guys at Strip Cover Lit. They are on the king of all rolls when it comes to these tags. Can't wait to see. They tagged a bunch of people. I can't wait to see what the people that Dalton Tag do, and all the rest of you are tagged as well. So I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.